Massive weekend of Gaelic football action. OShea controversially picked his two Super 8 groups and left out both Tyrone and Cork, which means that
Cork's not that controversial.
Which means that Cork are going to lose this weekend in the Munster football final. Micheál Quirke is on the line to talk to us. Micheál, good morning to you.
Morning, guys.
Dara O'Shea in his column was predicting a 5 or 6 point win for Kerry. Owen has obviously rubbished their chances of reaching even the Super 8s. It looks like Kerry have finally got over their need to talk up Cork in advance of a Munster football final.
Yeah, it seems to be something that's falling away small, but all right, yeah. I suppose it's difficult to talk them up too much. I mean, other years at least you got some bit of context for it. Obviously, they had a really good performance against Tipperary, which kind of surprised a lot of people because I think a lot of people were figuring that the way Tipperary were going, they were probably looking at the second best team in Munster, and they put a big score up on them and they performed really well, and so I suppose that kind of caught everybody by surprise a small little bit. So we're, it's not a little bit like Kerry. We're not really sure of what they're going to bring, but they tend to give you this big one big performance every year, and you don't know if their game against Tipperary was it.
What's the truth about where Kerry are? I mean, it's very hard to ask and answer that question after such an easy win against Clare. And just even thinking back to last year, they obviously had a fairly straightforward victory against Cork in the Munster Championship. So Super 8 is definitely something that's going to suit Kerry. But what's your assessment of where they really are?
I mean, you can only base it on what we've seen, obviously, in the past in the Championship game against Clare, and I mean, after that game, you're saying they're the best football team in the world after that performance. But obviously, the truth isn't exactly there. I mean, this game will give us more of an idea, more of a context. I would have assumed Cork would have come out in this game and played somewhat more defensively, even though Ron McCarthy and all the sound bites kind of coming from Clancy and these guys don't seem to kind of agree with that. They seem to focus on their own game and play their own way. And I think if they do that we could, not see a hammering like we saw against Clare, but we could see another kind of maybe a comfortable victory for Kerry if that happens. And again, I don't think we'll be any the wiser as to how good or bad Kerry really are. I mean, they put Cork in context. Obviously, they were beaten by Clare earlier in this year. They were down in Division 2, nothing kind of happening for them, and then they've won big performance against Tipperary. So I'm not really sure. Even if Kerry win this game, we can be saying, look, Jesus, Kerry are ready to go against Dublin. It's just hard to know until we get to those games against Galway, hopefully, and so on in that Super 8.
Yeah. So the Galway game is obviously a game that we're all really looking forward to at this point, and I know we're kind of maybe taking Cork a little bit for granted, but let's just briefly assume that the form lines hold and Kerry do make it there. That Galway game is actually going to be a genuine test against a Galway team who have progressed from last year and who won't be spooked, I think, by what happened to them last year, but who will actually see that as a motivation, hopefully.
Yeah, well, it'll be the big test for them, obviously. I mean, they played Kerry in the quarterfinal last year, and I know we really shouldn't be talking about Kerry and Galway before a Munster final, but Donaghy himself destroyed Galway, that day, and they've obviously put a huge amount of work into their defensive scheme, and whoever it is, whether even if it is Cork and Luke Connolly and Brian Hurley and Colm O'Neill, like Galway's whole deal now is let's stop the opposition first and let's build from there. But I mean, if you get that game as the first game of the Super 8 with Kerry and Galway above in Croke Park, I mean, that's what that month is going to be about, and those big hitter games, which is something we all want to see, like the hurling, I suppose,
Yeah, like the last time Kerry played in Páirc Uí Chaoimh was obviously 2014, and I think when you look at the context of the new generation of Kerry football, that was obviously a pivotal day, Mike, because you had the minors winning that day, unexpectedly easy. It was their first Munster title in a while, but you also had kind of the display of how important the number 11 jersey is to Kerry, because Declan O'Sullivan was absolutely sensational for Kerry that day, and I feel since 2014 they haven't quite replaced the number 11 jersey until this point, until Sean O'Shea comes in, and obviously his point scoring has been the most impressive part of his game that we've seen so far in the league and in the game against Clare. But to what extent do you feel that he can be a playmaker for this Kerry team and get the best out of the likes of David Clifford and James O'Donoghue and Kieran Donaghy when he comes on?
I think his playmaking is his big point. I mean, I know he can score off 2 feet and stuff like that, but his ability to see the play and see the field and to be able to pick passes and get guys involved is what separates him from other guys. Obviously, he's got all the other attributes as well that you'd want, but he's the real deal. And this is going to be another big test for him in terms of his learning curve. And we saw through that National League, and I've made the point before, where even when it might have made sense to switch him out of centre centre forward Fitzmaurice left him there to give him as many looks at different oppositions and different defences as he could possibly get, because he knows coming down the line this guy is going to be a mainstay at centre forward, and we want to give him every opportunity to see something that's going to come ahead of it.
It's strange when you look at the coverage going into last year's Munster final, because I know Gooch ahead of the game and Darragh O'Shea ahead of the game were both genuinely fearful of what Cork might do in that Munster final. I don't think it was cute tourism, whereas this year it seems that there's much more of there is kind of a different view around it, where we're kind of talking about Kerry versus Galway already, but this is in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. Cork have just hammered Tipperary. It seems that this is the time to be a cute hooer, so to speak, before a game. And not even so, there is actual evidence to suggest that this could be a tight game.
Yeah, look, it's just, I don't know. It's really hard to know. I've been kind of, you're waiting for Cork to kind of come and to make a big statement, and maybe that game against Tipperary was it. Maybe that was their start of a new dawn under Ronan McCarthy and the Nemo guys and Luke Connolly, and they're all going to come in and make something really happen for them. But it's just hard to believe it until we can see it. And you'd imagine Blown Páirc Uí Chaoimh, their first big football game, in their new stadium, and there's people talking about it might be half full because they've spent too much money with the hurlers, and they know this team is going to do, and it's just got that kind of an inevitable kind of vibe to it, that Kerry are going to go down there, we're going to moan and bitch about the traffic and the parking, and you're going to win the game relatively comfortably, hopefully, and get out of Dodge again. And it's just, and it's dangerous. It's a dangerous mindset to be in, that it's kind of a box to be ticked as opposed to a game to kind of look forward to. But I'm sure, obviously, from Kerry's point of view and Fitzmaurice's point of view, he's looking for a 6th Munster title. It's a competition that's always, he's stood in good stead with that one, and he's built up his bank of experience through Munster, and for a lot of those guys, there's about 5 or 6 of them don't have a medal, which is unusual for a starting team with Kerry. So for them, they're not going to take the game as blasé or as lightly as we are, and I don't think that's going to be much of an issue for them.
One of the other things that strikes me, we were obviously guessing what the draw is going to be and positing potential Super 8 groups a little bit earlier on, but while the romance of some of those so-called weaker counties winning games up to this point in the championship has been great, at this point we do actually want the stronger teams to come through, so that we do have the better teams playing home games, be that Tyrone in Omagh or be that Mayo in Castlebar, that actually, while it would be great for Tipperary to beat Mayo for the championship, and for us in the absolute mayhem that is going to be the Super 8s, we kind of need those big teams there to actually give each other the opportunity to improve against each other and to test each other out.
Yeah, and that's the way, even the way the qualifiers are going, it looks like the way it's going to be, it's setting up for that. I mean, Tipperary and Mayo is probably maybe Carlow, it's the biggest one of the qualifier games that you could see some potential for a kind of an upset to a big team. Now, with the hammering they took against Cork, you'd imagine Tipperary will come out and make a bit of a shape and make a bit of an effort. But, Mayo, as always, even though we keep writing them off, they seem to have kind of rejuvenated themselves a little bit again, that you'd imagine they'd get over that one. And if you do get yourself to a situation that it looks most likely that you're going to have those teams that you mentioned, Monaghan are in the mix, Mayo, Tyrone, I mean, there's going to be, whether it's Kerry or Cork, there's going to be big games happening kind of week in and week out, and it's like everybody's in a rush to get there now, and we're kind of, we're forgetting about maybe Fermanagh and Ulster and Laois in Leinster, while they're big moments for their season, and the same with Cork. It's kind of, everybody's anxious just to roll on to those big games. Yeah,
it's true. And like Kerry in Clonus against Monaghan, and Kerry playing Mayo in Killarney, and Kerry playing Galway in, the hurling has definitely completely been the main focus of the GAA season so far, but that's about to completely switch, and we're about to get the benefits of this. There was one point earlier that somebody made the point that Dubs are going to play 4 weeks and 5 to reach an All-Ireland final if they are going to make it there, and that will test squads in a way that we haven't seen squads tested so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially a Dublin squad, when you're missing the likes of a Diarmuid Connolly and stuff. That's going to be a test. But look, should have about 65 on their squad. They'll surely cope for a couple of weeks to Dubs. But it's really, like, the hurling was so fascinating from everybody's point of view, and it was great to watch these big teams playing each other week in, week out, and it really gave you a sense of, a Super Sunday in the Premiership, every, the big games, United, big games, and now now it's just completely flipped on its head, and the football hopefully is going to. And it's strange that and I know like the provincial finals used to always be the big games and they're the big moments that everybody wanted to play in, and now it's just, and everybody's doing it. It's just a case of, can we get the provincial finals out of the way so we can move on to the next stage to see exactly what this whole thing throws up to us.
When you look at the Ulster final this weekend, Mike, Fermanagh against Donegal have been hugely impressive, and some of the young players they brought in have really stood out from Declan Bonner's perspective. Ultimately, though, the winner of this, first up, Croke Park against the Dubs. We saw what they did to Monaghan last year in the surrounds of Croker, and you do fear whoever comes through, they could meet a similar fate. Is there anything to suggest that Donegal have reached a level, if they win on Sunday, because that is a big if they win on Sunday, that they can go toe-to-toe with Dublin 3 weeks later in Croke Park and potentially even win the game, because we've been let down so badly by some of the Ulster teams in Croke Park in recent years?
Yeah, it's a big. I mean, look, obviously they're not going to be looking past Fermanagh, and Monaghan might have done the same thing and got caught, obviously. So you'd imagine Declan Bonner in his first year, kind of a fresh start, like winning an Ulster title to them is going to be like winning an Ulster title. I think is still, maybe I shouldn't say it, but an Ulster title seems more important to the Ulster teams than maybe the Munster does, or certainly the Leinster does. You know, those competitions have probably diminished somewhat because of the dominance of Kerry and Dublin and those. Connacht probably less so with Mayo, but certainly the Ulster one is the most open, and I think they place more value in that Ulster title than maybe the other ones. But if they whoever gets out of there, if it's Donegal, you think they would probably be more equipped offensively to put up a game to the Dubs. Fermanagh, while they can't Monaghan, I'm just not sure they have enough scoring power to really trouble them. Whereas if you get Donegal there with the freshness and the new guys they have, and with McBrearty flying still, and Murphy and Jamie Brennan, these guys, they can ask questions. Now whether they can beat them or not, I'm not so sure until we see them slaying. It's hard to back anybody to do it.
One last question. You had a great piece about the influence of basketball coaching and the stuff that you can actually take from basketball. It's applicable to GAA, and clearly made the point that this has been in the GAA for a number of years at Dublin, at Roscommon, obviously, and Kerry have gone that direction as well. Are you starting to see the impact of the influence of the basketball coaching on how Kerry are defending just yet? It's hard to read too much into the Clare game, obviously.
Yeah, it's difficult. Like there wasn't hugely obvious things during the National League. Now I'm not sure how much James Welland kind of had involvement during the league, but and the Clare game was just such a cakewalk. It was difficult. I'm sure as you get on now to this game against Cork and to the to the Super 8s, I think you'll see more of it. Obviously, the way they set up on kickouts was something that was very new, and it was very structural, and it was very kind of a zone defence, and it takes a bit of organisation, and it was obviously something that maybe came from him, or that element, and that's good. I mean, that's if you're bringing in guys who are coming with different ideas, something that Kerry haven't done before to that extent, and kickouts, then that's good. And you'd imagine against Cork we might see another layer on top of it, and it's just they're small little bits and pieces that you'll be able to start picking out as the games become bigger, but and they're just basic principles that you need to build on. And I'm sure like these guys are training so much now, you'd imagine they got to be putting all this stuff into their repertoire.
Mike, great stuff. Enjoy the weekend. Thanks a million.
No bother, guys. Take it easy.
Yeah,